Released over a year ago, iPad Pro 2021 was a huge shock, and especially because of the M1 chip that Apple put inside this iPad. Like during the April 2021 event, everyone was shocked that Apple actually managed to put the M1 chip into the iPad Pro. People were blown away. The capabilities, the hardware capabilities of this device were expanded tremendously. Everybody was blown away. And then came iPadOS 15, literally disappointing everybody with literally no upgrades at all when it comes to the basic functionalities that can take advantage of that M1 chip. People were disappointed and were complaining about iPadOS 15, including this guy. But then, like quite a bit, few weeks ago, Apple dropped iPad Air with the same M1 chip that's on the iPad Pro, and the question remains, the merits remains to be discussed. Does it make sense? Does the iPad Pro really make sense a year later? Like, what's the future? Should you really get the iPad Air over the M1 iPad Pro? Well, here's the thing. I sincerely believe that the iPad Pro, the M1, is worth the money over the iPad Air with the M1, with the same M1 chip. And like, what the heck? You think like they have the same chip, they look very similar, they both support Magic Keyboard, Apple Pencil 2nd generation, like there are no major difference, right? Right? Well, actually that's not necessarily the truth, because, well, the first thing, naturally, is that iPadOS that's limited on both devices. There are leaks and rumors suggesting that that may not be the case soon, that the Apple will finally do something with these M1 iPads, to give them more capabilities. But until that, I'm not really gonna comment on that. I'm just gonna say this. Yes, these devices have the same power. They're gonna be supported forever thanks to that M1 chip. But there's actually a difference. Like you can have power and you may not be able to take advantage of that. And the thing with iPad Pro is that because it has that smoother screen, that high refresh rate screen, that promotion display, because of that, the power that you have on this device actually feels like you really have it. iPad Air is still tremendously fast, just as fast as iPad Pro, but it doesn't feel as snappy nor as smooth because it doesn't have that high refresh rate screen. And if you buy a product with M1, if you are not considering the basic iPad, if you want to go for the iPad with M1, you are still dishing out a lot of cash. And like you're gonna be using this iPad probably for a long time. And with iPad Air, you have that 60Hz screen that, yes, it's still okay, fairly smooth, it's still fast because of that M1, but the iPad Pro will make you the experience better. And think about it, maybe you're gonna use your iPad for 5 years. I mean, heck, it has the hardware capabilities to be used for that or even more. So like, in the time frame of 5 years, like, won't you miss even a little bit that promotion? Wouldn't you be happier if you actually had the iPad that performs faster and smoother because of that screen? Like, on top of that, the storage is the main limitation with the iPad Air, 64 gigabytes. Like, you wanna have an iPad for 5 years, and you really think 64 gigabytes is gonna be okay? Like, maybe, but then like, you may give me the argument that I'll be streaming videos and whatnot, but yeah, then what's really the point of having M1 in your iPad? Like, you can go for iPad Air 4, if that's the case, since they are pretty much the same when it comes to functionality and streaming videos. You can go for the previous iPad Pros, but if you wanna get the M1 iPad, like the iPad Pro, I believe, is the way to go. It has better Thunderbolt port, it has more advanced camera system. Yeah, I know what you will tell, but like, for me the design looks cooler, it's the Pro lineup, and you have slimmer bezels, you have better display, you have more RAM if you decide to go for higher storage configurations. So it's overall a better product, like there's no dispute about that. And it's not that much more expensive. Like, there are a lot of deals for the M1 iPad Pro 1 year later, and the price gap between the Pro and the Air is getting smaller and smaller. And considering the fact that you wanna use your iPad for longer periods of time, for many more years, like, you're gonna pay $150 more for the better overall experience and for the fact that you have a Pro model. And yes, sure, the Air has great capabilities, it's a great model, but it's just so close to the price of the M1 iPad Pro that I just feel like it's really not worth the money since the storage is just too low. And even if you don't care about that promotion, like, it's still a nice thing to have. Like, it may not be a must-have for you, it's still a nice thing to have. And on top of that, as I said, you have better speakers, you have more storage, like that alone is worth paying extra. And on top of that, you have other capabilities of iPad Pro that make this device just better even 1 year later compared to the M1 iPad Air. And you know, this device is not perfect. And why is it not perfect? Well, mostly because of the OS. But I don't know, they are supposed to do something with that OS. I'm not sure if I necessarily buy it. All those rumors, maybe Apple will finally decide to do something with their iPads, you know, give them more capabilities, because at this point it's just getting ridiculous. But even if they don't, like, this device still offers you more, and I feel like more value because of the things it offers. As I said, the speakers, if you want to use your iPad for longer, like eventually you will want to use those speakers, you will have better on iPad Pro, 4 speakers instead of 2. Eventually, maybe you will want to have some better speed, and you won't actually feel any speed decrease with that M1 iPad Pro, because it's gonna be smooth the whole time with the 120 Hz. Like, again, maybe you want to have more storage, like iPad Air has the base storage of 64 gigabytes. And like 256 version is really not worth in my opinion, because it's literally the same price as iPad Pro. So like, it really doesn't make sense for me. I would sincerely recommend iPad Pro with M1, even though, as I said, the iPad OS still has limitations. Thanks to that promotion and thanks to that extra hardware capabilities, I believe that 1 year later, since this product is cheaper, it's actually worth getting over the M1 iPad Air. I'm really curious what's your opinion about that topic. Maybe you have a completely different opinion about that. Maybe you think that I'm talking just some absolutely ridiculous thing. iPad Air is a great value. Well, it's a great iPad. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's a bad product. I'm just saying that I sincerely believe that if you're on the fence and if you're already spending at least 600 bucks, you're just better off with the M1 iPad Pro. It's not like you're already on a super tight budget, since if that was the case, you wouldn't be buying iPad at all, or you would be going for some older iPads, or maybe, you know, iPad 9th gen and whatnot. But since you're already spending at least 600, like, paying a bit extra for that will actually give you more than a little bit extra. So that's my logic behind this argument. Hope you did enjoy. If you did, I would really appreciate if you smash the like button, smash that subscribe button. Hope you did enjoy. Have a fantastic week, whatever. Have a fantastic days. Until next time.